Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. What's up, y'all? DT2 Comics Chat here. What we're going to talk about on this episode of Sloppy Spoilers is we're going to review the latest Ahsoka trailer, and we're also going to do a little catching up in terms of the backstory that we think is relevant. And me and my crew are actually deciding if we're actually going to review this series or not. We were having some interesting conversations before we came on because there's so much more behind Ahsoka as a character that you won't know if you haven't watched Clone Wars and Rebels. So let me bring on my co-host. Welcome to David Nemesis Howard.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Looking forward to talking about this. I am really of two minds about this whole thing, and after watching the trailer, I'm split even more. So can't wait to dissect it a little bit. So,
welcome to Steve Shadewing Sellers.
Hey, as far as this show goes, I'm kind of like cautiously optimistic. Like I want it to be good. I love Rebels. I love Clone Wars. I mean, a lot of these characters, it's nice to see them again. Hera and Sabine. It's been a while since we've seen them. It's good to see them again. But at the same time, it's like this is Thrawn. That comes with a lot of expectations because this is a very difficult character to get right. He's a character that was handled reasonably well in Rebels, but this is Disney Star Wars, and Filoni's star is not as high as it was after Mando season 3. So coming into this show, it's like I would like for it to be good. I think the ingredients are there for it to be good, but it's Disney Star Wars, and you can never take anything in face value.
Bingo.
True. Now,
I have to comment real quick. DT, the way you are sitting there, it looks like you are Ahsoka Tano right now.
I didn't plan that, by the way. Did not plan that.
I was thinking that. I knew that.
It's kind of worked out with the picture. That was not on purpose.
I think it's funny.
Just kind of happened that way. Okay, but see, there she is. And there's me. Ahsoka. Okay, so what I want to say before we get started is the complexities of this character. I want to make a comment on the general Star Wars universe, that being the good thing about Star Wars, especially Lucas Star Wars, because we have at least two different eras now. Like we have Roddenberry Trek and we have Berman Trek and we have, what's his name? I always forget his name. Kurtzman Trek, right. We got eras now. Never think, dang, I do look like I'm wearing that hat, don't I? Never think that those things don't make a difference, because they do. Remember, I tell you that showrunners, producers, writers, and the general attitude of the people running the show makes a difference. So we have Lucas and Lucasfilm Star Wars, and we have Disney Star Wars, and it's made a huge difference. So the good thing about Star Wars is you can't halfway be a Star Wars fan. Most Star Wars fans are all in or all out. So the stuff I'm saying, I really don't know who it's for, because if you're a Star Wars fan, you already know everything I'm going to say. And if you're not a Star Wars fan, you're kind of casuals. I don't know. So I'm just going to throw it out there because I feel like I need to say it. The good thing about the Star Wars universe is that there is plenty of content at this point. And Timothy Zahn almost single-handedly saved the universe with his novels. And people that are jumping in after reading some of those first Zahn novels and his first Thrawn trilogy have no idea the impact this man and his work has had on the Star Wars universe. But that's true with some of the other novels as well. So the good news is that there's a ton of content. There's not just the movies, there's books, there's games, there's the animated shows. And so if you are all in on Star Wars, there's plenty of stuff to do. That's also the rough part. The rough part is that there's a ton of content. And if you have anything else to do with your life, you may not be able to experience it all. So I'm saying that to say it's critical that you understand who Ahsoka is and what her relationship is to the Jedi and the Skywalkers, or else there are going to be things that happen in her show that I guarantee you they're just going to fly right over your head. They're not going to have any kind of meaning or impact to you unless you really understand. So, in case you haven't watched Clone Wars and Rebels, I'm going to have Steve talk about a few things as he's our resident expert. Let's start with, is it Mortis? I think Mortis is where so many incredible things happen.
Mortis, yeah, Shades of Mortis. I think there was an entire three-part episode where Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka land on this planet called Mortis. And it's very much kind of like a weird fairy tale that is run by these very powerful beings. Imagine kind of like the Tempest, except in Star Wars, it's kind of like that. You know, they're kind of stuck there. And so you've got this powerful being, and he has two children, a son and a daughter. The son is very dark. The daughter is extremely, more light-sided. And, they kind of had their dealings with that. And through a complicated series of events, Anakin is shown his future. Okay. And this very nearly ends up changing history until he ends up realizing that, he has to forget and things have to happen the way that they were meant to happen, for things to turn out for the way they're supposed to. Other things happen. I mean, Qui-Gon, appears as a ghost, things like that. It is one of the weirdest episodes of Star Wars media, or at least bits of Star Wars media that I think has been out there. It's better than I make it sound, but it is interesting. And I think, I don't know how relevant it's going to be to Ahsoka in general, but I mean, that is definitely a part of it.
So what happens in these episodes, and I can't do it justice, I'm just going to be summative as best I can. What happens is that they enter into new dimensions and realms and understanding of the Force. They see who the Father is. He's the balance keeper. And then there's the light side and the dark side. The son kills, the son who represents the dark side, kills Ahsoka and his sister. So what happens is the Father enables Anakin to somehow transfer the life force of his dead daughter, the light side, into Ahsoka and brings her back to life. And that's where also you see the bond between Anakin and Ahsoka and how much he really cares. And their story is always one of her reflecting back to him, kind of himself. Just as an aside, that's why I like Batman and Talia and Batman and Damon so much. Because no one shows Bruce who he is like Talia and Damien. Because Bruce is self-righteous on his own crusade. I shall become a bat, blah, 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 blah. And then he sees other people that are just as zealous about what they believe. And then he has a child with her who's just as zealous. And then he's like, well, you can't do that. So that is kind of Anakin and Ahsoka. And that's why they develop first a begrudging respect and then an intense camaraderie, either a father-daughter or more of a brother-sister thing. He's not that much older than her. And so that whole thing where he resurrects her and she gets imbued with the power, or at least the avatar of the light side of the Force, is huge in their development. So, I mean, it's things like that you got to know going into the series. Now, Steve, talk about when and why did Ahsoka leave the Jedi Order?
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a long story as well. It happened in the 5th season, or at least the setup happened in the 5th season, and I do mean that literally. She was set up. So what ends up happening? Yeah,
the season of
Clone Wars. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, 5th season of Clone Wars. So this is so actually the titles of it, like The Wrong Jedi and things like this, they're meant to echo Hitchcockian films. So, this is so basically, Ahsoka is framed, for something to do with Grand Moff Tarkin. I believe it was something involving him, and it basically she ends up being framed for murder, and then she's put on trial by the Jedi Council, and this was something that was engineered by Palpatine. Who ends up being the kind of like the arbiter, and she's kind of tried in the Senate and all of this. And at one point, she kind of ends up getting away. She teams up with Asajj Ventress, who is the former apprentice of Count Dooku. and she has actually kind of turned, I wouldn't say good, but I would say neutral. She's more of a bounty hunter now. She's no longer Sith. So the two of them kind of work together to kind of get to the bottom of what happened and how she was framed and all of this. Eventually, Ahsoka is cleared of the charges, but it's one of those things where she ends up leaving the Jedi because the Jedi Council were not supporting her. They were kind of going through their motions, but they were really not giving her the benefit of the doubt the way that Anakin was. Anakin was the one person who was on her side the entire time. And so I think she kind of felt like, okay, if this is, what all of the people in the Jedi Order think of me, then I should leave. But I think part of it also was an element of she didn't feel like the Jedi at that point were serving the people. She thinks that they were serving the Republic and the Senate and Palpatine. So, she became more individual centric as opposed to the Jedi Order, who really were thinking more of the big picture and the war and the Republic. So that kind of caused the rift between that. And so that's why you really see Ahsoka in Rebels facing Vader and saying things like, "I am no Jedi," because at that point she really wasn't. She could have come back. I mean, Yoda was willing to take her back. He asked her a couple of times, but she just never felt like she was able to. And unfortunately, it was too late by then to come back after the last time she talked with Yoda and with Anakin. So so and I think she kind of always sort of felt like she failed Anakin because she distanced herself from the Jedi Order at a time when Anakin needed her most. I remain convinced that all of this was set up by Palpatine on purpose. That he was trying to drive a wedge between Anakin and Ahsoka so that Palpatine could get his, worm his way into Anakin's head. And ultimately that succeeded.
And see, that's a better setup than what we saw in Revenge of the Sith. We didn't have a lot of time for the so-called seduction of Anakin Skywalker, but when you watch Clone Wars and Rebels, all of a sudden you see that most of these storylines were quite a bit of time in the making, and they kind of come into fruition in the live-action movies. Also on Mortis, they saw their future. So Anakin actually saw some of the dark stuff he was going to do, and the father made him forget it. But Ahsoka saw her future, and her future self told her she was in jeopardy if she continued as the apprentice of Skywalker. So she had that running around in her head too. So it's not like there was external pressure, but there was internal pressure too for her to, get out of the position she was in terms of being a Padawan. And so all of that is feeding into, I think we're going to see some of the events we're talking about in the Ahsoka series. And, but I really strongly recommend watching Clone Wars and Rebels to get a sense of why they're so close and how Anakin really went out on a limb for her and how heartbroken she was when she found out that Darth Vader was Anakin and what that meant to her. And, so it just adds so much more weight to their fight, that kind of thing. And so just as an aside, the Kenobi series had the opposite effect. That's why I still say to this day it's crap on a stick. Because
yeah, and I would also suggest another major piece is the Siege of Mandalore arc, which was done in the last episodes of season 7, where she confronts Darth Maul, and this kind of explains how she and Captain Rex end up going on their own way, kind of going underground and being part of the rebellion, and that leads into Rebels.
Yes, because somewhere in that timeline, Palpatine gives Order 66. And so he breaks free and saves Ahsoka's life. And so there's a whole bunch of details going on there. So I just want our audience to understand, but if you're deep into Star Wars, you probably already knew. But just in case you're a casual watcher, just in case you're trying to decide whether or not you're going to watch this series, you got to get the backstory on this character. You got to get the backstory on all these characters because it's not going to have the impact if you don't understand where they're coming from. And like I said, I do think we're going to see some of these events play out in live action. So it'll be interesting to see if they recreate the stuff in the animation shot for shot, frame for frame, angle for angle, or if they try to do something new with it. I don't know. So having said all that, let's watch the trailer and then we'll comment.
All right, hold on for a second. Let me pop that up. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I will say I do like Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. I think she did a really good job as the character when in Mando season 2. I think she's going to do a good job as Ahsoka in this series as well.
Well, for me, she disappears and becomes Ahsoka. So that's always my, bottom line for actors, that do they disappear into the character and cannot see them? And she really becomes Ahsoka as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah, I also love how much she's a fan as much as she is an actress. I think she feels like she's one of us.
that
One
always
of us. One of us. All right,
that always helps. All right, here we go.
here we go.
War is inevitable. One must destroy in order to create. We are no Jedi.
I started hearing whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
What happens when we find Thrawn?
Power, such as you've never dreamed.
I've spent most of my life fighting a war. That's why I'm trying to convince you to help me prevent another one. You and I both know who could help you with this.
She's still just as stubborn as ever.
I bet your master found you difficult at times.
Anakin never got to finish my training. I walked away from him, just like I walked away from Sabine.
You never made things easy for me, Master.
As a Jedi, sometimes you have to make the decision no one else can. But I'm counting on you to see this through.
Nice haircut. Sometimes we have to do what's right, regardless of our personal feelings.
Buckle up.
If we don't stop Thrawn, everything will be in vain. You have no power.
Anakin spoke highly of you.
I'm not here to discuss my past.
We have a lot of work to do.
Once a rebel, always a rebel.
All right, gentlemen. What are your thoughts? What's your reaction to all that? I have mine, but I want you to go first. Go ahead, Nims.
Let's see here. Well, first off, I'm going to say that it looks absolutely beautiful. I will say that it looks absolutely stunning. The characters, the ships, the effects, all look animation accurate, which is a good start right there. So, I mean, they're playing with house money, especially for some of what Disney Star Wars has done recently. So right off the bat, I'm going to say that. Second, though, because I have Disney Star Wars in the back of my mind, and everything I see, I take with a grain of salt, because I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, So I'm like, God, this is going to suck me in, because I watched that trailer and I'm like, I got to watch this. I got to. And I'm like, Jesus, are they going to fool me again? And I'm going to watch this and I'm going to get my heart broken, That said, from some show thoughts, I think Thrawn looks great. I take a little offense with them using the words heir to the Empire, though, if we're not doing a true heir to the Empire story. It's like, don't throw that in there just to throw me a bone, unless you're planning on doing heir to the Empire, which I know they're not, so it's like, that's a little annoying to me. Second, I love that they're bringing Ezra Bridger back. Story-wise, I think that's a great move. I hope that he gets involved a lot more. If Thrawn came back from where they were, then Ezra coming back is great. And I hope that Ezra doesn't fall victim to the MCU treatment that a lot of other male heroes get. I will say that. Third and finally, and this is just a personal thing, and I was talking about this a little bit before we went on the hand. on the air, even though she looks great as Athena, I can't unsee Colby Smulders as anyone else but Maria Hill. So it's going to take some time. But I watch her in this, the way she walks, her mannerisms, the way her eyes blink, everything about her screams MCU Maria Hill to me. So it's very hard to see her as a Twi'lek and anything other than Maria Hill cosplaying. So it's just difficult to watch. But that said, the trailer's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. It is beautiful, and I love the red Lucasfilm at the beginning. That is really class. So one other comment, and I'm curious to hear what Steve has to say. I forget what this character's name was, but that female force wielder, I don't know if they're technically Sith or not, with the white hair, reminds me a lot of the character from Knights of the Old Republic 2. So
yeah. Are you thinking? You're thinking Juhani or
the one that turns out to be the bad guy, the head Sith.
Oh, Kreia.
Yeah,
a little bit. There is a little bit of look of the handmaiden in her. And who actually was meant to be her daughter, but I don't know.
Yeah, it just
reminds me. It could be she's from Dathomir as well.
It reminds me of it. It doesn't mean it has anything to do with it. It's just an observation.
Yeah.
So, but
it's interesting.
I do think it would be cool to see if they have any more tie-ins in the movie or in the series to back to Clone Wars and to Rebels, because that would be really, really cool to see. Like, I love seeing. It's been a while since I watched the show. Yeah, and I love seeing the robot. Actually, seeing him. What's his name?
Yeah, that robot. Yeah, he was in an episode of Clone Wars, and basically he was the one that took out a group of Jedi younglings, Padawans, basically, to get their lightsabers. So basically, he's basically the Forge Keeper. I forget what it's called.
Not Athena. I said Athena. Hera's astromech droid.
Yeah.
What's her astromech droid's name?
Chopper.
Oh, Chopper. Yeah, I love seeing Chopper, and the ship looks great. It's great that you could tie that back to Rogue One and everything. So you're really getting some world building and story, and it's keeping current all the way through. And I even love the fact that we have the a version of like the Alderaan guards or the Republic Guard uniform when the Sith are throwing those guards around. So like I said, visually and story-wise, it's hitting on all the cues in the trailer, which is giving me a lot of hope. So,
yeah.
Okay. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of that. The only thing I would want to say, like from the start, is I don't think that's Colby Smulders. I think that's Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Is it?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm wrong.
So this is actually a death-proof reunion between her and Rosario Dawson, which I find really interesting. But yeah. And I will say, like, I think they've cast these actors perfectly as the characters that are on the show. They definitely look like them. They sound like them. I think that, Winstead really, I think, captures Hera, who is a very motherly character, who is a very authoritative character, but not in a way that's annoying. She definitely has both sides of her that I find really interesting. The fact that she's a really good pilot. All those aspects are in this trailer, and we do see that. Sabine, I will say I like the actress. I think that they made her look really good. I'm just sort of wondering, when the world did she become a Force sensitive? Because I don't recall on Rebels her ever using the Force. I remember her using the Darksaber because Kanan taught her that. So I totally get her, playing around with lightsabers. But I don't remember her ever like being able to use the Force. So I just find a little weird. Hopefully they will explain that, because she really didn't know Ahsoka that long on the show, at least. But there was all so I guess all of this stuff going on between them now is just all the years that have been since the end of the show and the Mando era. So we'll kind of see that it just kind of raised my eyebrows just a little bit, because this was never hinted at before. But aside from that, I think it's really interesting. I think Lars Mikkelsen, casting him as a live action Thrawn is great. He was the voice for Thrawn on Rebels, so that absolutely makes sense. I want to see him in his full glory, rather than these very tiny shots that we've seen. So I'm kind of curious about that. I'm kind of in agreement about the Heir to the Empire stuff. It's kind of like how Marvel tends to do things like Secret Invasion, except not really.
Yeah,
It has
exactly.
nothing to do with it has nothing to do with Secret Invasion. It's one of these Disney things where they like to name drop things without any of the substance, and they just change everything. Now, with this particular thing, I'm not really expecting it to be Heir to the Empire, except maybe in vague concept. I think it's just basically, okay, let's see what a story with Thrawn would be like in the New Republic, in the timeline we've set up, leading to the sequels, which I would just as soon forget ever existed. But there we go. But still, I don't mind that because I like Ahsoka. I like the Rebels crew. I hope we see Ezra again. It seems like we're seeing a little bit of Ezra. Hopefully, we'll see Rex. Get Tim Morrison and back as Rex. I want to finally see that happen. That needs to happen. And the villains look like they could be interesting, but we'll see. I mean, it's clearly not Jorah's Kavoth. This is some other dude with an apprentice, and clearly they're not really connected to the Sith directly. They're former Jedi, and they've gone to the dark side for other reasons. I'm curious to see what that would be. So there's enough there to make me interested. But again, it's like, this is Disney Star Wars. This is, again, Kathleen Kennedy. And, the more she gets involved, the more things tend to not work right. Filoni, somebody I generally tend to trust. But on the other hand, we had Mando season 3, we had Book of Boba Fett, and they were not, quite up to par on that. So I'm hoping that Filoni finds his, I guess, the energy that he needs to put everything together properly, the way that it was on Clone Wars.
I am sorry that I mistook Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Colby Smulders.
No, I could totally understand the confusion because they do kind of look similar.
Also, do you think we'll ever see Zeb again? Or, Gara Zeb, the Lasat. So, he's gone.
Well, I'll say something about the past and something about the future. You had to have watched Clone Wars and Rebels to have any kind of idea who these people are and have any kind of idea what their story connection and emotional connections are, and for the scenes to have any weight. If you're just meeting them for the first time, then it's going to be a limited kind of perspective on them, which I don't think is wrong. I'm just saying that again, this is the thing. If you don't watch all the content, this is kind of what ends up happening, because you'll see a whole new section of the universe that you maybe didn't keep up with, and then you're going to have to try to piece together. And so that's my concern is always, who's it for? This would have to be for hardcore Star Wars fans that consume all things Star Wars, because you're not, I have to see if they've written it well enough for this to be an entry point. I don't see how so many characters with so much history and significant history, things that could have changed the course of the entire Star Wars saga, I don't see how, if you don't know their backstories, how you can write it in such a way that this is a jumping on point. I could be wrong. I actually hope I'm wrong.
No, it feels like an Infinity War Endgame type of thing, where it's like you're kind of expected to have seen at least some of the other shows to get a context. I mean, because if you really care about Hera and Ahsoka and some of these things, you've got to have seen like some of the other shows to really get a feel for that. So I completely
not only that, Sabine, Ezra, Hera. For you to know about Thrawn, you have to have read some stuff or watched some stuff. I mean, you're absolutely right, DT. That's a great point. Is like, if you're,
I think you need to have seen Rebels minimum, just because all the characters that we're seeing came from there.
Yeah, I don't want to be. I'm not saying this derisively, but if you're a normie coming into this show, you're going to be lost. So
okay, and that is a good point for me to do this and show you this. What we can you see it? Okay, yeah. So what we keep talking about when we're talking about Heir to the Empire, because this is something you either know or you don't. We're talking about the original Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. And I met him one time at a convention. It's the only time in my life I ever fanboyed. I was like, oh my God, it's Timothy Zahn. But anyway, so he single-handedly kept the interest in the Star Wars universe alive with these excellent, excellent novels. But there are so many characters in these books. Talon Card,
Mara Jade.
Mara. If you don't know who Mara is, that's just such a huge chunk, you know. And the famous statement made by Kathleen Kennedy was, we don't have a blueprint, we don't have a plan, we don't have books to draw from, we don't have years of history. And everybody was like, what? Then she turned around and drew from all the Zahn books anyway. We were like, yeah, right, okay, whatever. So I'm saying this is what we're talking about. So if by chance you have not read The Heir to the Empire or the original Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn, I highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. Not just to preface watching Ahsoka, but just to experience the books themselves, because they're so well written and they're so well done and so many great characters. And, you know, I'm not going to get into any spoilers if you haven't read it, but, you know, you'll read it, you'll see what I'm talking about. And the reason I personally care about it is because Thrawn is one of my favorite kind of villains. And what I mean by that is that he's a thinker, he's a plotter, he's an observer. So he makes surgical strikes after having studied his targets. And his famous line is, because you know how they say, what lines do you quote from your favorite content? I quote this all the time. I use this all the time. He said, if you want to understand a people, you must study their art. That is so powerful because it's so true. So I say it all the time and I do it all the time because I think it's true. And so he's that kind of character. And he's one of my favorite because he's got the menace, he's got the look, he's got the weight, but he, like Batman, so the reason I like Batman, he's outthought you. Before you throw the first punch, he's 10 blows ahead of you. And if you want to see someone who actually did that in real life, so you understand that these are real principles, that would be Muhammad Ali. Now, if you're not old enough to know who Muhammad Ali was, you have to go back and study him. But what Ali did, Ali psyched you out before you got in the ring. Whenever there was any type of media thing, he was in your face. I am the greatest. I'm the greatest of all time. You can't beat me. And he would say that over and over and over and over and over till it got in your head. So when you got in the ring, you were already somewhat shaken. And then he would end up using a lot of different techniques he made famous. He would use rope-a-dope, which Rocky used in Rocky 3. He would let you swing and swing and swing, but you hit his block and you're wearing yourself out, but you haven't scored any really knockout blows. That means he's still fresh. So when your arms start getting slow and you're getting tired or whatever, then he comes out with a flurry. All that, Rocky copied all that from Ali, just so you know. And then he had something called the Ali Shuffle. Ali Shuffle was where he shuffled his legs real quick, just throw you off and whoop, that kind of thing. So I'm saying fictional characters, Thrawn and Batman, real life people, Muhammad Ali, use these techniques.
Yeah.
They outthink you. They study you. They understand your moves. They understand your fighting style and your techniques. Football teams are supposed to do that too, but we know sometimes it's not as effective.
And Thrawn was based on real life military leaders, you know, people like Rommel, Napoleon, you know, these kinds of people. And the other thing I like about Thrawn, I'll also mention, is that he doesn't, you know, lead the way that Palpatine and Vader do by fear. He inspires the loyalty of his troops. They love him. They would die for him. That is one of the things that makes him so dangerous, is that he inspires these people to go above and beyond for Thrawn because they respect him. And that's a different kind of leader that we hadn't seen in the Empire before. And it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, nothing more dangerous than having an army of zealots behind you. But I'm not going to mention no names, not like there's a real life corollary or anything. So anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is that the trilogy and the characters are so rich. And I'm saying that as a writer. See, if you love good storytelling, these books are good. Not just if you love Star Wars. If you love a good fantasy / sci-fi story, you have to read the Heir of the Empire stuff. And also, like I said, also as a precursor to Ahsoka, so that you kind of understand some of the weight of these people when they show up on screen and what they're bringing to the table. So having said that, I will say I am more interested now than I was, but less because of the trailer and more because of my friends. When I hear my friends' comments, that's why I like doing these pods. When I hear what they're talking about, I'm like, you know what? Maybe we should check that out just so we can dissect it and just kind of to see what's going on. But I have to share. I will not say that I'm cautiously optimistic because I'm not, but I will say understand because I'm not necessarily optimistic about Disney Star Wars, but I will say they lure us in the same way every time. They put together these hot trailers. They give us glimpses of these characters that we've known and loved. They give us probably some of the best shots in the shows to get us in. But once we get in, then boop, 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 boop. Then we get some level of bait and switch. We get Reva. We get Obi-Wan having had a chance to stop Anakin 3 times now. I still am not over that. I still am not over the fact that Obi-Wan had 3. We only saw 1 in Star Wars, and then Obi-Wan just kind of let himself become one with the Force. So that wasn't necessarily Vader beating him. But Obi-Wan had 2 times based on the Kenobi series. And he had a relationship with Leia, and just so many things that were just not over the amount of crap that was.
And Qui-Gon, just being like an afterthought at the end, even though it was supposedly a major thing that he was communing with Qui-Gon all those years. What a waste!
Right.
I will say this about Kenobi. As far as I'm concerned, it's not canon. That was fan fiction. The whole thing with his fight and his ability to like pick up everything in the world and chuck it at Vader. It was like he had never shown that level of ability before. That makes him one of the strongest Jedi, if not the strongest Jedi ever, which he wasn't. He was very strong, but he was not one of the strongest Jedi ever.
And Reva, who seems to be able to make connections out of nowhere, and suddenly somehow they happen to be the right ones.
Yeah,
a show that is so bad that even the young actress who was in it criticized how stupid one of the scenes were.
That's right. That's right. Ridiculous that they're sneaking her out underneath the trench coat and nobody notices a 10-year-old. No, right. The actress said she thought that was ridiculous. And I think they did the Obi-Wan scene to make it look like Rey's scene where she's lifting all the rocks, whatever. But I'm like, dude, if you're on that level,
it just occurred to me.
Time ago.
They basically turned Obi-Wan into a Gary Stu at that point. It was like suddenly he had more powers than he had any right to, and without doing anything to earn them, because he had effed right off from the Force for years. So
then on top of all that, he shows up as an old man in the original movie, and he's a shadow of who he used to be. But we have the series has proven that age is not a restriction for access to the Force, because Yoda was old and Count Dooku was old, and they did just fine. So so you can't have it both ways. But anyway, that's
too old to begin the training.
Right. So anyway, so canon changes every time we get a new series or movie. So now we're just like flexible canon, which is an oxymoron. Well, I tweet about that every week now. But anyway, so I'm saying, having said all that, I also like Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. Most of the things I've seen her in, I really like her as an actress. I haven't really seen her in anything where she just really threw me out of the movie. So I really like her. And she really feels like she disappears into the character. So I believe I'm looking at Ahsoka in live action and not Rosario Dawson in makeup, because that's my problem with some other superheroes. They don't disappear into the character. I see them in the costume. And that's not, what needs to happen with an established superhero character. So, and I love her double lightsaber blades. I love her being a rebel and outside of the Jedi Order, although she's been trained and she's top notch. And her living by her own convictions, I think, is one of the core characteristics of the character. And I think that's really interesting, given a world that, up to a certain point has been light side or dark side, has been you with me or against me, where you're, an Imperial or you're a rebel. And, we know eventually it gets into Grey Jedi, but I'm saying I think Ahsoka is one of the few characters that begins to give us a greater glimpse of being a Force sensitive and being trained in the ways of the Force, but yet forging out your own path because you don't really agree with the extremes. And if you understand her backstory, you understand why. So, having said all that, if they don't pay all of that off in the series and it's just another bunch of, Mary Sue's or Reva's or a bunch of dumb stuff that rewrites canon or just a bunch of really well shot action scenes that don't have any plot significance or whatever, then I'm just going to be some collective eye rolling around here. And, so we went through it with Kenobi and like now we're like, we don't want to see that no more. We all said, if we don't ever have to watch that again, that's just fine. And that's rare for all of us to agree on that level because we're all different levels of optimists and we all have different perspectives as writers and fans. And we all were completely united. Like, we don't want to watch that no more. Just y'all take that back to where that came from. if you go and do fan fiction, you should at least do good fan fiction. Lord have mercy. But anyway, so I don't know. I'll still roll it around. So my needle is slightly closer to yes, but it's not way over here on full, like when you fill your car up. It is not on F. It is just slightly, maybe I'm a little bit more inclined to watch it now. I'm gonna have to think about it some more. Maybe those first episodes that they drop, it drops on the 23rd, so we got a couple of weeks. Those first episodes will probably tell us everything that we need to know. That's normally how it works. If they can hook us in the first two, then maybe. And the reason I say that is because Andor surprised us all. Andor started off really slow. Andor started off really flat, and it was really Star Wars lower decks. Star Wars, ground forces. Star Wars, earth tones. It really was that. And then as it developed, we grew to care about what was going on. We grew to see the bigger picture because it was really a zoomed in window on what was going on with the empires taking over certain worlds. But we grew to care about what was going on. And I know they're going to have another season, which is going to lead right into Rogue One. So we were really surprised. The last 4 episodes of Andor paid off everything that it took it, that long to set up and was enjoyable to watch.
I would really love to see them use Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka and go backward in time because I would love to see how Ahsoka got involved with the rebellion in the first place and who brought her in, so she's revealed in Rebels.
There was a little bit of that alluded to in Tales of the Jedi. She had connections with Bail Organa.
Right. But they didn't actually show, I want them to show me all of what she was doing and how she set up behind the scenes, because I think there's an opportunity there to get, and I can't remember his name. I'm so bad with names now. What was the guy that we all loved that was the spy that was operating on Coruscant in Rogue One?
Oh, yeah, Luthen Rael.
Yeah.
Luthen.
Yeah. I would love to see
Andor.
I would love to see her being involved with that group and then and all the different groups and coordinating behind the scenes with them and running operations. I think there's an opportunity
Luthen would
there.
be absolutely manipulating her and she would not care for it.
Yeah, but I think it would be fascinating. You're talking about a Game of Thrones level type show. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we love so much, is the politics behind the scenes of the rebels and all of these different things. And she's not going to appreciate Lucan either, but they have to work together. And meanwhile, Saw Gerrera's out there as well doing his thing, so
yeah.
All this stuff going on. So I think there was an opportunity there. I don't know if they'll take it, but it would be nice.
I mean, I'm hoping at the very minimum we see her and Anakin together in a flashback, because I think that needs to happen.
Well, is it Hayden Christensen coming back for this show?
I'm sure.
I think so.
He would be down
I think so, but I don't know for 100% sure.
See, and if they do Andor season 2, I really want to see how Mon Mothma resolved her issues and how she became the rebel leader that we know, because her story was one of the most fascinating stories in Andor. See, I love the intrigue between two worlds. I love it when you're a celebrity, when you're a 1%er or a 5%er, because you are trapped by all that money and power. you can't act the way you want to act. You have to play the game on that level to stay in those circles. And so now she's playing a very dangerous game where she's starting an underground movement because she doesn't like what the Empire is doing. And then her sister, who we first meet on the field, and we find out she's a 1%er too. Like, whoa. So her story, Mon Mothma's story, was so fascinating to me. So I want to see that play out. But also,
I want to see what it cost her as president of the New Republic.
Absolutely. But also, I'm going to throw this out. I see every time after the Phantom Menace, every time we see Maul again, it's impossible, but I love it. It's impossible, but I love it. He got cut in half, but no, we got robot legs. But no, the top half survived. It didn't bleed out or anything. We were able to cauterize the wounds, cut off the bleeding. So we're going to give it robot legs, okay. And you still got the Force, okay. See, so every time Maul comes back, it's impossible, but I love it. So
and he became a much better character after they brought him back.
I'm hoping against hope that we get full-on Maul, some glimpses of the fight, stuff like that, because that would just rock.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka is the place for it.
By the way, Hayden Christensen has been cast in Rebels, and he's credited as Anakin Skywalker. So
awesome. Yeah, I really want to kind of see that because they actually do have cast together, Dawson and Christensen, and I really do want to see that.
I wonder. Okay, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm curious what you guys will react. What if they bring him back as a Force ghost? Are you for that or against it?
Yeah, I'm for it.
And I'd rather see him when he was alive and see some of their actual adventures play out, even if it's flashbacks.
Yeah.
If we're chronologically past the point where they happened, then I want to see some of those things from Rebels done in live action. Can you imagine the emotional weight of seeing the two of them in live action playing out some of those interactions? That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
that would be cool too. I will accept a Force Ghost just just if it's a scene that has weight and is not treated like Qui-Gon.
Yeah, I would love to see. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I'm with DT. I prefer to see a flashback to Clone Wars or something like that.
Yeah, that would be better.
The problem is that Ahsoka and Clone Wars is a little kid, so still for the most part,
a little what?
A little kid. So yeah,
like a teenager.
Well, see, if it was me, if I was writing, I would actually start the series that way. That'd be the first shot. The first shot is
it would have to be it would have to be prior to Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah, and no one's gonna.
At that point, she's around 18, I think.
But that would be my first shot between Anakin and Ahsoka, and they'd be having one of those conversations. They'd be having one of their moments that they're famous for, and that would be the first thing that we see because that would hook people in.
And no one's going to confuse. No one's going to confuse Rosaria Dawson for anything but a grown-ass woman. So
yeah,
I'm just going to say that. Throw that out there.
It would have to be. It would have to be somebody who could pass for an adult.
Hey, they'll hire a baby Ahsoka like they hire a baby Leia.
Yeah.
Oh, not like that's a problem.
Well, hopefully, if they hire a baby Ahsoka, that she knows how to run away from people better than baby Leia did. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh Lord!
As long as she doesn't run away like baby Grogu.
Yeah.
Yoda.
In 20 years from now, pretend you don't know me. Put a message in R2, and we act like this never happened. Don't get me started. So anyway, like I said, it's not the trailer. It's more my friends because I want to talk about it. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to get more insight because of everybody's perspective. If Bracey was here, he always gives the technical and visual perspective in terms of how you make the monsters and how you do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. That's fascinating to me too, because one of the things that we've always talked about, when I say we, I mean longtime fans, is how shooting Star Wars on real life location is what gave it its grit. It's what gave it, even though it's a fantasy setting, it felt somewhat relatable when you shoot in real locations. Tom Cruise with his Mission Impossible series understands that too. But as soon as Lucas goes CGI and green screens, and as soon as he's doing all that, starting with Phantom Menace, it begins to push you out of it a little bit. And then when there's a million clones on the screen and they're all CGI, it looks more like, especially in Attack of the Clones, the very last shot where we see the clone army and we see the Star Destroyers firing up, That actually looked like animation to me. That actually looked like it should have been part of a cartoon. So
I want your comment on this. I think I know what I take away from this image, but this is the promotional image for Hayden Christensen for Ahsoka.
now that's half Vader, half Anakin.
Yeah.
That's really close to the armor he was wearing right at the end of before he turned.
So maybe, but like I said, flashbacks of their pivotal moments where he's really there. That's cool. Not the Force Ghost part.
Yeah.
Steve, what do you think about Anakin in this thing?
I think it looks cool, but at the same time, it's like, where do you place this? It would have to be like, I mean, to make that work, there would have to be like not too long before the Siege of Mandalore.
You know what else I would do before every Star Wars series? If I was Filoni, I would put a timeline, because they talk about it in the show, but I would put a visual timeline on the screen so the audience can place where this is happening. So based on the content you're familiar with, and you'd have some kind of idea where this is happening in the lore. But that's just me.
I'm also curious, we'll probably talk about this another time, but I'm trying to place the badge that he has on his shoulder armor.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks very similar to like the Rebel one, which was originally a Separatist one. So I'm not sure how to read that. So
maybe it's like the 501st Legion. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be.
So here's the last thing I'm going to say, then we're going to wrap this up. There is, and I'm putting on my writer's hat for this, there is such a thing in writing called going to the well one too many times. Now, all writers know what that is, and you've seen it in TV shows and movies. And what that means is that you had a great idea or you had a great premise, but you tried to milk it one too many times, and you did so until all the teeth was out, all the excitement was out, or anything left, and it's flat. It's no longer a viable idea that we get excited about. And that happens a lot. That's how you know when the studios have gotten their hands on what's going on and not just the writers. So I'll give you a good example and a bad example. One of the best examples in television history is, of course, Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, which is all planned out before it all happened. And so they almost did it with, the Jesse Chilney. And, some say they did it with Better Call Saul, but some say it wasn't. But after a while, you kind of want to leave a story world with some mystery still intact, with a desire to see more. You don't want to milk it and milk it and milk it and milk it until people start rolling their eyes when you bring it up. And an example of where that has probably happened is Jurassic Park and Terminator. Jurassic Park is an incredible idea. Terminator is an incredible idea. But some of the movies have just milked it, gone back to the well so many times. How many times can you have oops, we made some dangerous dinosaurs. Oops, they got out. Oops, we need to capture. No, we can't kill them. It's the same movie. It's the same movie. It's the same movie.
Oops, we're going to let a little girl release them onto the world. So.
Right. It's the same movie. Or how many times, Kyle Reese said, they blew the place. No one goes home. No one else comes through. It's just me and him. That's first movie. Second movie, the monologue, Sarah Connor saying, Skynet sent 2 Terminators back in time. One was programmed to strike at me, and the other was programmed to strike at John when he was 10 years old. So there's a lot of things that T2 does, but the movie was so good, we didn't care about all the self-canon eating that it did. By the time we get to T3, and he puts on the Elton John glasses, and then we get all the jokes with the female Terminator, I'm like, okay, y'all should.
And not to mention the complete thematic betrayal of Terminator 2. Oh, yeah, all that stuff about there's no fate but what we make. Oops, we lied. It's inevitable. Right. I hated that. Hated it.
Sarah Connor Chronicles was the follow-up to TT. Sarah Connor Chronicles was incredible, and I suggested everybody watch it. That's where the Terminator story ends for me. Because everything that happened after that, all the movies that happened after that, I can't even watch it. I actually didn't even watch Dark Fate. Once I heard about what was going on, and I was like, no.
This is the symbol they had on the his crest. So a variation on the Jedi crest. So
okay. So I'm just bringing that up.
It does look familiar. I just can't place it.
I'm just bringing that up to say I'm hoping we don't have that effect here. Not with Thrawn, not with all, because so many great characters, so many great storylines. There's still so much greatness left in Star Wars if they honor some of the source material, Lucas's original ideas, and Zahn's books. But if we keep doing every show has to have a Rey, if we keep doing every show has to have a Reva, if we keep doing we have to make all the original characters look like bumbling idiots, if we keep doing that, I'm afraid we might end up going to the well one too many times. You guys tell me what you think, and then we'll sign off about what I just said. Going to the well one too many times.
I think that's a risk with any long-running series, and I think there's some people that would probably wonder whether they've already done that with some of the shows that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think with Ahsoka, I don't think that that's necessarily happened yet. I think there's still interest in that character. I think there's still interest in Rebels, but I mean, they can't keep trying to milk things until they stop working. They've already milked almost everything in Lucasfilm dry. And on top of that, and all the things that you pointed out, it's like, I keep feeling like they just want to make everything about the girl boss characters, and they don't really want to do anything with like the classic characters that people actually love. This is the problem that we had with Obi-Wan. They keep on tearing the classic characters down so that they can build up whatever girl boss of the week that they want to come up with. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. When you even have like Star Wars Visions, which I was looking forward to, and virtually everything is about, okay, here's a girl boss, and there are absolutely no important male characters at all. It's a pattern. It's a problem. It's something they need to stop doing. I'm all for having strong female characters in all these stories. I mean, this series Ahsoka has some really great female characters that I care about and want to see more of. They should be making more characters like these. Okay. But I also want to see, more of Ezra Bridger, more of Rex, more characters like that. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We can have both.
Hey, writers and producers, if you're watching this video, I got 2 words for you. Mara Jade. Okay, go ahead, Nims.
No, I was going to say just, I also want them to stop gaslighting us and tell us they're not doing the girl boss characters too. It's like, you know what you're doing. Be honest about it, at least, so that I know that it's not for me, and then I won't watch it. So, it's fine.
It's like everything's been a girl boss production lately, except for maybe Andor. It's not defensible, guys.
Yeah,
Well,
and
remember,
it's.
Go ahead, Nims.
No, I was gonna say, and it's not like we don't want good female characters either. We do. It's just like, did you really have to eliminate every good male character in order to create good female characters? I don't think that's the way life works, But
Well, remember, Brie Larson kicked it off. I didn't want to hear what some 40-year-old white dude has to say about A Wrinkle in Time, about what didn't work for him. It wasn't made for you. Remember that? That's what kicked off that era. It wasn't made for you. So now it's like, okay, well, I'm with Nims. I'm like, it ain't made for me. I've got plenty of other stuff to watch. I don't even have time to watch everything I want to watch. So just let me know up front. We should actually have a warning label. Girl balls.
Yeah, it's like, and no offense to anybody who watched this movie. If you watched Barbie and liked it, more power to you. But I'm like, that movie is not for me. I knew it wasn't for me. I'm not going to go near that movie because it's not for me. I don't want to see it. And that's fine. If you enjoyed it, more power to you, So,
and on that can of worms, we're going to wrap this podcast up. So we'll let you know. Like I said, I'm leaning more towards yes, those of you that follow us. Thanks to all of you that watch us live, by the way. Thanks to all of you that are watching the replay. I'm leaning more towards a yes, at least those first 2 episodes, because I think we'll be able to get a feel. We at least want to see where it's going, because we do love these characters. We do love the animated series. We do absolutely love the books. We absolutely love Thrawn. So maybe it'll be worth a shot, but we don't want to get bait and switched yet again.
Yeah.
So thanks to my co-host. Thanks so much, Nims.
No problem. Thank you. And I'm with you. I'm leaning towards a yes. It's just, man, I feel like a snake bit lover at this point. I don't want to get hurt again. So
thanks so much, Steve.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards yes as well, in a very cautiously optimistic way. I mean, I like a lot of what I'm seeing. It's just that, well, Disney Star Wars and the track record. There's also stuff like Secret Invasion and other stuff that Marvel's doing. And, Disney Star Wars has been following in the same pattern. I want it to change. I want things to get better. I want stuff that everybody can enjoy. And unfortunately, I hate having to look over my shoulder waiting for the bait and switch every time they put something out. I'm hoping they'll improve with this one.
Dial of Destiny.
Oh, Lord. That's it. That's it for this podcast. We will definitely let you know what's going on. Follow us all on Twitter. Steve, what's your Twitter handle?
Shadewing. Much like you see on the screen now.
I know. I just wanted you to tell them. Nims, what's your Twitter handle?
Come follow me at Nemesis FC2 on everything. So.
And mine is DT2 Comic Chat, also on the screen. Let us know what you thought about this. Leave us some comments below.
Click like and subscribe. Click like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, because we have a lot of content for whatever you like. We got up and coming artists, writers. We got veterans in the industry. We got retro movies and TV shows. We got comic book reviews. We got some of everything in Comic Crusaders and United Capes Podcast Network.
And go check out DT's new YouTube show he's doing as well. So go check that out.
That's right, because I'm dropping rant rooms and breaking news every week now.
Yeah, you might see me occasionally on those shows too. So
absolutely, absolutely. So me and this crew, we will see you next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers. Y'all have a good night.
See you, everybody.